Coming up on Lawmakers, a decade-long battle to give optometrists more prescriptive powers continues in the House. Senator Chip Rogers moves to close a loophole that he says allows illegal drivers on Georgia roads. And we'll talk one-on-one with Appropriations Chair's Representative Ben Harbin and Senator Jack Hill about the budget process. Those stories and more are coming up next.
This is Lawmakers, your source for all the news from under the Gold Dome. Here are your anchors, Nwandi Lawson and David Zelski.
Good evening. Also on tonight's program, a Senate committee votes for a stronger version of an ultrasound requirement for women seeking abortions. And the Consumer Choice for TV Act passes Senate committee, but our lead story tonight, a battle over prescriptive powers for optometrists rages on. The House today passes a Senate bill to give optometrists greater authority when it comes to writing prescriptions. But lawmaker Sandra Parrish now joins us live from the Capitol to say there may still be a ways to go before both sides agree on how much authority that should be. Sandra.
In Nwandi, the House and Senate agree that optometrists should be allowed to prescribe oral antibiotics, but the House passed a Rules Committee substitute to Senate Bill 17 that allows them to prescribe a wide range of drugs commonly used to treat the eye. The original Senate version just limited that to 4. House Rules Chair Earl Earhart was questioned about how the House and Senate versions of the bill differed.
The version that came over from the Senate was a version that Dr. Thomas, the chairman of the committee over there, preferred. We've been absolutely upfront. I brought a copy of this version to the chair of the committee more than a month ago. We had a conversation. It's been on the desk in the Rules Committee every day that Senate Bill 17 has been on the consideration calendar, and that's about 10 days, the substitute here. The substitute is just merely the House version exactly as passed down to the last comma, as this House passed last year.
The committee substitute drew fire from Sharon Cooper, who chairs Health and Human Services. She said the Senate version of Senate Bill 17 was far more responsible than the bill being considered by the House.
The Senate sent over a bill that had been agreed upon in the Senate, and it had 4 antibiotics on it. It did not open it totally. It had 4 antibiotic classes. That is what passed out of the Health Committee. Chairman Earhart did tell me that he was going to probably open it wide open, and I'm going, not in my committee. So he had told me that. However, someone higher than both of us had hoped that there would be a compromise reached before we reach this point.
With a specific list of antibiotics, we could be down here every year changing that list and having the same discussion. I ask you to support this bill and to do the right thing by the data, by the anecdote, and by the absolute weight of evidence.
Senate Bill 17 passed 149 to 11 because of significant changes made in the House. The legislation returns to the Senate. Reporting live, I'm Sandra Parrish for Lawmakers.
Thank you, Sandra. Legislation that makes it unlawful for a person to be a saltwater fishing guide without having a valid annual saltwater fishing license passed the Senate today. However, most of the debate occurred yesterday. Senator Jeff Chapman explains House Bill 81.
House Bill 81 requires any person engaging in the occupation of saltwater fishing guide to obtain a saltwater fishing license, guide's license. It also has some provisions for those individuals that would like to fish off of a pier at a hotel or motel. Additionally, any person who possesses a U.S. Coast Guard operation or passenger vehicle license may purchase an annual fishing license which covers all fee-paying anglers while fishing with such guide, thereby exempting such anglers from other fishing license requirements.
Senator John Douglas then took the well to explain his amendment.
Amendment number 1 is bringing back Senate Bill 3 that was at the bottom of the calendar last night. This would create a hunting and fishing license, lifetime hunting and fishing license, a new category for veterans that had completed 90 days or more of active military service with an honorable discharge.
Senator Preston Smith then questioned the Douglas amendment, saying it should be treated as a substitute and would need to go back to the Rules Committee. Douglas agreed with what Senator Smith had to say and re-presented his substitute this morning. The Senate passed the new version of House Bill 81 unanimously, and it now goes back to the House. Also in the Senate, Senator Chip Rogers says he wants to close a tax loophole that he says paves the way for unlicensed drivers to take to Georgia's roads. Senate Bill 38 would require persons seeking an official Georgia tag to show a driver's license or a state-issued ID card. Lawmakers Jesse Freeman joins us live with more. Jesse.
Senator Chip Rogers says a member of the media made him aware that many illegal residents of the state are obtaining legitimate tags because the Revenue Service hasn't set forth uniform requirements for issuing them. The House Motor Vehicles Committee gave a due pass to the bill this afternoon, but not before Chairman Tom Rice asked Rogers to explain what prompted him to sponsor the legislation.
There's a lot of people who are driving on our roads that do not have driver's licenses. And under the current policy of the state, almost every tax agent or tag agent can establish their own rules for the most part. And what happens is someone will come in, and if they don't have a driver's license, all they have to do is simply tell the tag agent they are not a resident of the state. At that point, the tag agent has the latitude to accept any form of photo ID. So if they had a photo identification card from their office, they could register that vehicle, yet at no point do we know that that person has a driver's license. So you can understand the inherent danger of allowing that person to have a valid license plate on the back of their car when they don't have a valid driver's license. So that's a hole we'd like to close.
And the committee passed SB 38 unanimously. The State Revenue Department did have some minor concerns with the bill. Although legal residents of other states, college students, and elderly people who own cars but don't drive them are excluded, the department wants to make sure no legal drivers who want to spend their money in Georgia are turned down. Reporting live, I'm Jesse Freeman for Lawmakers.
Thank you, Jesse. Well, a few moments ago, we reported House passage of a prescriptive powers bill for optometrists. The Georgia Optometric Association today joined the Georgia Department of Early Care and Learning, Children's Health Care of Atlanta, Families First, and some adorable kids in support of vision screening for babies.
Today, from infancy to age 6, only 14% of Americans' children have had an eye assessment. By checking these babies between 6 and 12 months of age, we not only can pick up severe medical problems like retinoblastoma or problems with vision like infantile glaucoma, which could lead to blindness, but we may pick up problems that can affect them later on. A lot of them, up to 12%, could have a refractive error where they can be very, very farsighted, very, very nearsighted, and this can affect their development and behavior and growth as they get older.
House Children and Youth Chair Judy Manning led the passage earlier this month of House Resolution 514, encouraging families to take advantage of the Infant C program.
You know, they always say you don't get anything for free. This is for free. It is no charge, regardless of whether you can afford it or not.
Since 2005, the Infant C program has provided eye exams to babies between 6 and 12 months of age. And as the youngest constituents at today's press conference can attest, the results are crystal clear. If you'd like to learn more about the Infant C program and to find a participating optometrist, visit www.infantc.org. Well, legislation requiring physicians to offer an ultrasound before performing an abortion may still pass this session. Substitute for House Bill 147 passed out of the Senate Health and Human Services Committee by a vote of 7 to 5 this afternoon. Lawmakers Bridget Snapp is live at the Capitol with more. Bridget.
In Nwandi, the legislation introduced at the beginning of today's committee meeting would have only required a physician to offer the results if an ultrasound was performed. However, the legislation that actually passed out of committee was a bit tougher.
This bill is also known as the Woman's Ultrasound Right to Know Act. It will make an ultrasound component a part of the existing informed consent requirements. House Bill 147 requires that the mother be offered an opportunity to view the fetal image and the fetal heartbeat, if present, at the conclusion of the ultrasound.
At the last minute, however, the committee substituted the language of Senate Bill 66. A bill that failed to make it out of the Senate by crossover day.
It does require an offer of the ultrasound and then an offer for the woman to view the image of her baby.
So it's
yes.
Dual. It's required
yes.
the offer of the ultrasound and then the offer.
Offer and offer, yes. House Bill 147 is totally tied to the Woman's Right to Know bill and is involved with that code section. Senate Bill 66 is not connected totally with the Woman's Right to Know bill. I think everyone was quite surprised over this change right here at the last minute that Senate Bill 66 was substituted and voted on.
The legislation that passed today actually falls under the criminal section of the Georgia Code rather than part of the informed consent requirement of the Women's Right to Know Act. Substitute House Bill 147 next goes to Senate rules. Reporting live from the Capitol, I'm Bridget Snap for Lawmakers.
Thank you, Bridget. A bill with requirements for notaries passed the Senate today. However, some of the language in an amendment to House Bill 274 led to a few questions.
To strengthen requirements of who endorses candidates for notary, for example, they must know the person that they're endorsing. It also allows us to track them so that their background and contact information must be provided. If there's ever a problem related to what they notarize, we can find the notary. Amendment number 1 clarifies who can be a notary. You must be a legal resident or a United States citizen. It also requires that identification must be issued by the United States government.
Can one be a United States citizen but not a legal resident of the United States?
Yes, they can.
Senator, further yield?
I do.
Are we talking about people who live abroad, who are United States citizens who live abroad? Is that who we're talking about?
That could be, as well as if you have a permanent residency status under the United States Immigration Code as a green card.
Now, House Bill 274 passed unanimously and now goes back to the House. A controversial bill that would allow statewide franchising for cable and video service providers passed out of committee today with a 9-2 vote. Lawmakers Quandra Collins joins us live with more. Quandra.
House Bill 227, which is called the Consumer Choice for Television Act, sparked debate in the Regulated Industries and Utilities Committee meeting after Senator Jeff Lewis, the bill's sponsor, shared the purpose of the bill.
Competition enters a marketplace, two things generally happen. One, prices decrease while customer service and response increases. But it's comforting to know that regardless of what service is being offered to me, whether it's cable television, telephone, or cutting my grass, that there's options out there and they can compete against each other. You know, I get to see how bad they really want my business.
Supporters of the bill say that House Bill 227 proposes 4 key principles, which are to increase competition by giving consumers more choices, create an equal playing field so that competitors have access to the regulated options that are available, make sure revenue streams in the counties and cities are protected, and finally, make the control of the local right-of-way remain with the counties and cities.
I wanted to emphasize there's a lot of talk about leveling the playing field, which is very important. I think this legislation does that we need to make sure, which this does, it levels down rather than leveling up. Rather than adding new regulations, the existing incumbent providers, the cable companies, we're freeing them up to compete as well.
But what sounded like a good policy for some struck discord for others.
The problem with this bill and with statewide cable franchising is it does not require AT&T, Comcast, and your other providers to provide service to anybody they don't want to.
Again, House Bill 227 received a do-pass recommendation by a vote of 9-2. It now goes to the Senate rules. Reporting live at the Capitol, I'm Quandra Collins for Lawmakers.
Well, thank you, Quandra. A bill that seeks to allow the expansion of petroleum pipelines through West Georgia was brought before the House Judiciary Committee today. Sam Whitehead of the Colonial Pipeline Company explains why he thinks this pipeline bill and Senate Bill 173 could benefit Georgia.
Proposed expansion project that we have is only for that section into what we call Atlanta Junction and Powder Springs, because there's ample excess capacity downstream of there for that other section of the line that actually will be utilized after this expansion if it's successful. And we've predicted that it will handle the projected volumes for Georgia and downstream states until at least the next 25 years.
Deborah Bennett of Landowners for Environmental and Economic Protection expressed her opposition to Senate Bill 173.
If this bill is passed, our organization will balloon tomorrow. People have no idea what this is. They have been told different things by Senator Hudgens came down to Wilkes County. Oh, that's nothing. When you say the words eminent domain to landowners, taxpayers who have earned what they have, then you have a problem.
The House Judiciary Committee did not vote on Senate Bill 173 today and suggested more research was needed to perfect the legislation.
A bill that provides state-funded vouchers to students with disabilities to attend private schools was discussed in a House Education Committee meeting today. Lawmakers Lanny Walker now joins us live with more. Lanny.
David, Senate Bill 10, or the Georgia Special Needs Act, was based on the McKay Scholarship in Florida. The committee heard testimony on how this similar program has benefited students with special needs in our neighboring state.
The program has been a success in Florida. We have 17,000 students that participate in the program, even though we have more than 480,000 students with disabilities. So that's less than 5% of the students who are eligible to take the scholarship in Florida choose to do so. And the signal that we see with that is that the vast majority of parents in Florida who have students with special needs are very happy with the services they're receiving in the public school system. But for whatever reason, little under 5% really need something else, something to meet their children's needs.
Senator Chip Rogers, one of the co-authors of Senate Bill 10, spoke about another bill which focuses on education, Senate Bill 9, also known as the Grade Integrity Act.
The bill simply prevents a teacher from being coerced or intimidated into changing a grade. It would not prevent a grade from being changed. The administration may in fact change that grade. If they feel the grade needs to be changed, they would simply have to note that they in fact have personally changed it.
The full House Education Committee is expected to vote on both these bills when the legislature reconvenes the second week of April. Reporting live for Lawmakers, I'm Lanny Walker.
Thank you, Lanny. The Senate Appropriations Committee yesterday heard a greatly scaled-down version of the mid-year budget that was passed in the House. Earlier, I asked House Appropriations Chair Ben Harbin about the importance of maintaining projects the Senate is calling pork.
You know, I think all of those projects are very important projects. They're worthy projects. They were debated. You know, the House is a very open process. All of our committee meetings and subcommittee meetings are televised. They're over the internet. They're live. So what we did in the House was no surprise to the Senate. They have known all along what we were planning to do. We were working under the rules that have been in place for a long time, trying to come up with a conservative budget that met the needs of Georgians. And I think we've done that. The Senate came with this. They didn't communicate in any way to us. They came with something that was a surprise when it's really nothing more than a shell game. They're not really debating the projects. They're saying, let's put the money in 08 and spend it there. I think that's being a little bit intellectually dishonest.
Well, the normal budget process, of course, allows for the Senate to make its changes. Those come back to the House traditionally. Those are voted down and a committee of conference is appointed. Why is this year different?
Well, I think it's different because we do normally debate the process or debate the items as we move through the process. And that's what we were operating under. And for them to come and say, well, we're just going to strip everything, we're going to do it a new way, and try to do it in the middle of the process is really, it's a shell game the Senate's trying to play that I think is the wrong time to bring this up. I applaud the Lieutenant Governor. If he truly wants to do a conservative budget, we're willing to talk to him about that. We think we've passed a conservative budget. If they want to change the way we do it, let's talk about it for next year, or let's talk about it even in January of this year. You don't come at the last minute and say, we're going to change the rules, we're going to do it our way. That's not being fair to the people of Georgia or to the people in the House who represent, most ultimately, who represent the people of Georgia. So I hope that we can get through this when they pass their budget. We're going to get this back to debating whether this is a good budget or not, but to try to change the rules in midstream is really, it's not being fair to the House or the people of Georgia.
Well, a key provision of that supplemental budget was that bridge loan to cover the Peach Care insurance program for children. What is the impact of this impasse now on the insurance for kids?
Well, we're going to pass this budget. The people on Peach Care will still be on Peach Care. The program will continue. It's a great program. The Senate, with their maneuver, they may have delayed it by a day or two, but I think in the end we're all supportive of Peach Care. But what we're just trying to maintain is don't play a shell game with the people's budget and try to say we're going to be more conservative by doing this next year. That's not being conservative. Being conservative is passing a fiscally sound budget, which we have done.
Well, the House has also adopted House Bill 340 and sent that over to the Senate. That's Speaker Richardson's plan to revise that threshold for Peach Care. Is that going to impact the budget process as you all move towards doing the 2008 budget?
Well, I hope not. I mean, not right now. I think that we will pass a budget that still funds Peach Care in 08. Peach Care will still survive. What Speaker Richardson's proposal will do is make sure that we maintain that program in the long term. And that's all we're trying to do there. It won't affect anything immediately. but in the long term, it will maintain the viability of the Peach Care program so that those children who truly need Peach Care will always have it available.
Well, of course, with 10 days or less than 10 days, rather, in the legislative session remaining, you still have that 2008 budget out there. What's the status of that in the House now?
We are very close to completing that budget. Now, the problem with completing it fully is that until we can work out 07, so many of the things in 07 have implications in 08. We've got to know where we are there before we can actually put our stamp on it and send it to the Senate. So I hope that they will move quickly, pass the budget off the floor tomorrow when it's available, and let's get to work on conference so we can finalize 07. Because without 07, there's really no way to get to 08 except for trying to guess. And that may be the way the Senate wants to do it, but we like to operate based on the information we have, not based on guessing on what we might have.
All right, well, with those beautiful voices of school children there behind you, I have to thank you for being with us on Lawmakers. Representative Ben Harbin, House Appropriations Chair.
Nwandi, thank you again.
Now, Senate Appropriations Chair Jack Hill also commented on the Senate version of the budget. I began by asking him about the top few priorities the Senate targeted during their 24-hour revision of the budget.
The state budget, amended budget that we have espoused and passed out of committee reflects Lieutenant Governor's belief that the amended budget should be a slimmed-down version meeting just the critical and emergency needs and our constitutional responsibility. And we think that budget does that. Contains, of course, the funding for Peach Care per the agreement with the Governor and the Speaker. It contains the emergency funds for Southwest Georgia. As well. Has funds in there to help keep hospitals open, all critical needs. On a constitutional side, it meets the responsibility to fund the mid-year education adjustment. So we think this budget does what our philosophy is, that you need to balance everything in the main budget. Every project should compete with all the needs of the state, and then we come out with one budget, and we operate under that budget for the year, and only change it in the last part of the year for those things that are truly emergency or critical or constitutional.
Now, the House claims that you all are playing a shell game and have put some of these changes in at the last minute. Your response to that?
Well, you know, I don't think so. We're very sincere about it, and we believe that the place to debate those projects as one time and new projects is in the 08 budget. And we're at work now to try to produce an 08 budget that does that. We don't pass judgment on any of the projects they put in. We just think that they are worthy of discussion. It's just the forum, we believe, should not be in the amended budget. Now, there's funding in the amended budget that we have prepaid bond interest so as to have those funds available in 08 to discuss, about $180 million. We think that's the proper place to do that. But frankly, considering the fact that the amended budget would have not gone into effect until the last month or so of the fiscal year, by delaying some continuation items, we've actually saved about $40 million that would not have been saved under their version. So I think there definitely are savings.
Now, after this passes on the Senate floor, this will probably go to a conference committee. You know, there's probably going to be some projects that the House wants to put back in. How agreeable are you all going to be when it comes to that situation?
Well, what we'd like to, of course, do is discuss both budgets together and kind of come to some accommodation. And it's still early in the process, but we're determined to keep it moving forward. We're working on an 08 budget and we hope to be completed in about a week. So we would hope they would do the same.
Now, when it comes to this 08 budget, how much of the same philosophy dealing with the 07 supplemental are going to come into dealing with the 08?
Well, I think that what we will do is look at the needs of the state. The governor has a good proposal, a good budget on the table as well, and then we'll look at the adds that the House has made, many of which have support in the Senate as well. We'll try to include up to that $181 million in one-time type on projects, and then we'll meet the needs of the state just like we always do. And I know that the House is interested in that as well, and they're very sincere about what they're doing as well. They're our friends, and they're very honorable people.
Now, it was hard not to notice that some of the governor's initiatives were not there, and the little time we have left, tell me a little about why some of those were left out.
Well, there again, most of these are one-time expenditures that could wait until 08. We feel like we've got the funds set aside to fund his initiatives, and they'll be considered, and are certainly very important. They'll be considered as well in 08. We don't think anyone's going to be concerned once all the cards are on the table. I think the citizens of the state are going to be well served, and I believe the objectives of the governor and the House will be met as well.
Senator Jack Hill, thank you so much for joining us.
You're quite welcome. Thanks for having me.
The Georgia Property Rights Coalition made its debut on the Capitol steps yesterday. The rally was supported by realtors and legislators who feel that private property rights have been under attack here in Georgia. The coalition has several goals: to protect private property rights, encourage property owner-friendly tax policies, and promote land conservation. The GPRC deems these efforts necessary to protect the quality of life and the economic future of the state of Georgia.
We've got to take a real hard look at where we are in the tax policy in Georgia, because we have a tax plan that basically forces folks that if they don't have the money to continually to sell property every year just to pay the tax on the rest of it.
We're also standing for protecting the opportunity for first-time home buyers, young families to afford their houses, for senior citizens to not be taxed off their land that they've lived in all their lives. We're not going to be moderate in our approach we're going to be very dedicated, we're going to fight hard, we're going to be a very professionally driven organization.
In July, the GPRC will monitor the appointed Special Water Management Task Force to ensure property rights are protected as that group attempts to solve statewide water needs.
It's tradition that outgoing senators preside over at least one bill during their final session, and congressional candidate Jim Whitehead was given that opportunity today. So we'll let you be the judge on how he did.
Tradition will allow people that are leaving us to have a chance at the podium to preside, and it's appropriate today that it is also this senator's birthday. So if you will welcome our soon-to-be former colleague and soon-to-be future congressman, the senator from the 24th, to the podium.
Isn't it true I didn't ask for a motion, sir? I just was inquiring about the germaneness of this substitute bill from the Judiciary Committee.
Senator, are you inquiring that of the Speaker in the well?
No, sir, I'm inquiring of the presiding officer.
No.
Are you ruling that this substitute is not germane?
Senator, the fact that you're out of order, I am going to rule that it is not germane. Would the senator from the 31st please be seated? There are no other questions, Senator.
Now, House Bill 386 passed by substitute unanimously under the guidance of Senator Whitehead, and it now goes back to the House. Coming up tomorrow on Lawmakers, it's the end of another legislative week. That means it's time to talk with Tom Crawford of CapitolImpact.com. And Nwandi speaks with a Peach Care mom about how changes to that program could affect her family. We'll have those interviews and all the latest from Under the Gold Dome tomorrow night at 7. If you have missed any part of this Lawmakers broadcast, tune in tomorrow morning when Lawmakers repeats at 5:30 a.m. Now stay tuned for Prep Sports Plus. That program is coming up next here on GPB.
Well, that's our broadcast for this, the 32nd legislative day of the Georgia General Assembly. I'm Nwandi Lawson.
And I'm David Zelski. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening.
Good night.
This has been a production of Georgia Public Broadcasting.